Microsoft has so many ways that you can build AI agents that honestly, it gets a little bit confusing. So I'm going to deconstruct this for you. Should you be using Copilot Studio? Should you be using the Agent Builder? Should you go right into Azure or Code First solutions? There are three things that you need to know to be able to understand what is going on here with the types of agents you can build and where to start. We're going to go through all of this step by step. By the end of this video, you will know exactly what's what and how to do it. The first thing here is to understand what kind of agent you want to build. Now, when you're on the Microsoft platform, there are two main types of agents. The first one is extending the Microsoft 365 Copilot. Now, this is the one that is the paid $30 per user per month that is available, connected to all of your graph data. You can now also use these agents in Microsoft 365 Copilot Chat. A whole other video on that here. Essentially, though, this is working within that Copilot Chat interface, and you can extend that to work with other systems. So that's one kind of agent that you can build. The other type of agent is a completely standalone, something perhaps you want not connected to your Microsoft 365 or tenant data. Might be something that's external, might be some kind of custom AI agent solution. So we're going to go through the spectrum here, but the first thing to decide is this something that you're using inside that Microsoft 365 Copilot Chat experience? Always going to be an internal authenticated experience, or is it a custom agent that you want to build? The second thing to consider is what are the skills that you have as a maker or the people who you're working with in your organization. And we've got a full spectrum of options here. You can build agents with natural language using the Agent Builder. This is designed for people who are end users in the product, everyday business users, kinds of people who might be doing things like rules in Outlook or macros in Excel. It's in that kind of zone. Copilot Studio is designed for your low-code makers. This sits as part of the Power Platform. Drag and drop interface. You can do much more sophisticated things than a regular business user, but you are developing without needing to write code first. And then at the top end here, we do have code first tools, including tools that allow you to really get deep into the actual large language models and configuring those as well as the user experience. Now, the thing that's great here is that no matter where you decide to start, these things are all connected in the platform. So you should start wherever your skills are or wherever your need best maps these things, and we will go through them all, but you can extend up and down here. You're not stuck once you start in one place. You can actually take it all the way through. The third thing is, what is it that you need to be able to control? These are the pieces, the anatomy, if you like, of building an agent. You have instructions that tell it how to behave. You are an expert in human resources and you should provide professional. You should provide professional and friendly responses. I tried to blend those words then. It has knowledge. It's connected to documents or websites or SharePoint lists or other databases in your organization. It can take action, triggers, workflows. Sometimes it can even act autonomously. We're going to go a level more technical now. Orchestrator is around the decisioning of what the agent does and how it behaves and how it knows which topics to pick and how to control that experience. Foundational models, the language model that sits under that, and there's a huge variety of AI models from a bunch of different providers out there, and you'll see how we can bring those in. And the user experience, which is optional, it can be a chat experience or it could be an automated experience running in the background. So your choice about what type of agent you're building and what tools you use will inform how many of these things you have control over. Spoiler alert, when we get to that top end of the Code First and Azure, you're going to have full control, whereas when we're starting here with the Microsoft 365 Copilot extensions, we are at a much lower level of control, but also a much lower level of skill and time to get something out into the hands of your users. So let's take a look at part one here, which is working with an extending Microsoft 365 Copilot. I've got the other terminology in here. These are called declarative agents. If you are a code first person, you're going to talk about these as declarative agents. This is a reference to declarative programming. If you are a low code user or a business user, that terminology doesn't make sense to you. You are extending Microsoft 365 Copilot. These are just different angles on the same thing, and there are different tools for these, and you'll see the language change depending on the tool that you're using. So first of all, why would you do this? Why would you extend Microsoft 365 Copilot? What's the use case for this particular type of agent rather than building a custom agent? First up, Microsoft 365 is providing that foundational model, the large language model. It's currently OpenAI GPT-4o, so it's a current and powerful model, but you get what you get and you don't get upset there. That is the model. And the orchestration, the decisioning about how the conversation is going to run and which topics are chosen. So if you are building in extending Microsoft 365 Copilot, you have no control over those things, but also you don't have to understand them. You don't have to build anything. They are just provided for you and you can move on past that part and build on top of it. This is the theme here, right? This is about the control versus the time to value and the skill set needed. So if you are extending Microsoft 365 Copilot, these things are already done for you. You are using the Microsoft 365 Copilot chat UI that has the suggested prompts on the screen. I'm going to switch across into a demo in a moment so you'll see what I mean. A lot of comments and questions on my previous videos here have been around how do I create that? Essentially, if you're starting from this point, that is part of that capability. If you want it somewhere else, you're getting into a custom solution. And that is a very familiar UI. If you've got users who are already there, it means that they can have those extra agents just in the context of where they're working. So I'll show you how that works. It's very easy to connect to your business data. If you've got the Microsoft 365 Copilot paid license, the $30 per user per month, it's already grounded in all of your work data. It's very easy to get to things like SharePoint and OneDrive. Even if you're using the Microsoft 365 Copilot chat experience pay as you go without a license, you're in that place. Like your starting point here is in Microsoft 365, so it's easy to get to those things. And you can add custom actions for workflows and automation. So if you're in this zone, then this is where you want to be with extending Microsoft 365 Copilot. If you're reading this list right now and thinking, that is not what I want something that's customer facing, that has custom channels, skip ahead. I'll put the chapters in there. You need to go look at the section on building custom agents. But stay along for the ride with me so that you understand the difference between these things. Importantly, this is always an internal authenticated use case. You are logging in with that Microsoft work account to access these things. You cannot build a Microsoft 365 Copilot extension for external use cases. Again, you need to be building your own custom agent if you want to be doing that. So here are the things that you can control if you're choosing this option. And we'll go back to our anatomy of what's going on with agents. You can build instructions. You can say, you are a friendly HR person, this is your tone of voice, use lots of emojis, that kind of thing. You have control over knowledge. You can connect it to SharePoint. You can connect it to other line of business systems within your organization. And you can also set up triggers, actions, workflows for it to do things. Within the Microsoft 365 Copilot, that is essentially how you're going to extend it to do those things. I'm going to put autonomy in here as well. I think there are some options in there. I've seen some things coming on the roadmap. Not entirely clear how much of that you can do just yet, but I think that will be part of it. But you do not have control over the orchestrator, the foundational models, and the user experience is as it comes within that chat experience. So let's take a look now at the pieces involved here. This is the Copilot Studio Agent Builder. We are at the natural language end users. This is the easiest entry level. And this is something where end users might want to be doing everyday productivity type things the same way they can set up rules in their other productivity apps. So I'm going to go through how you can, as an end user with natural language and no other more sophisticated skills, get access to pre-built agents, create an agent in that Microsoft 365 Copilot chat. And for good measure, we're going to throw in creating agents in SharePoint here as well, because that's a thing that comes up. I'm in my Microsoft 365 Copilot chat experience here as a business user. And you'll see on the side here that I have got this option to get agents. If I click on that, there's going to be a bunch of different agents here that are provided by Microsoft or provided by my organization if people have been developing these things. And these are essentially things that are connected to common types of systems. Presumably my organization has these connectors set up already, as well as things that are fairly simple agents that just have instructions in them. So let's have a look at this. This is one that's going to help me with learning, and it has got information in here about what it's going to do. If I have permission to do this, I can just choose to add it in here. Now these everyday Copilots that are coming out of the box with this Microsoft experience here, you are essentially just getting something that has instructions. That's all it has. I've seen people ask, what's the difference between this and creating a custom GPT? Same. You're basically going in and saying, you are a learning coach, you are expert at providing advice on learning, and this is all pre-built in there with these prompts. So this UI experience with the prompts here is very much part of this, and I can just go in and ask questions about all of those things. As a user, I can switch back and forth between these things. So we've got the learning coach, there's a career coach in there, you'll get the theme of it, and then back to my main Copilot experience. So I can switch across and access each of these individually on purpose, or Visual Creator actually is the image generation one that's in there as well. Or I could come in here as part of my main Copilot experience and mention any of these things. So if I wanted to ask my learning coach something just in the course of a chat with Microsoft 365 Copilot, I can mention the learning coach agent there. So these are all agents that sit within that experience. As a business user, I can also create my own agent. And the scenario here is where I need a chat experience that is something that helps me with my productivity. It might be a particular project where I just want to talk to a certain set of documents, or where I want the agent to just talk to me about a certain topic and specialize in answering in a certain way. So I could say here, I want an agent that can help with travel and expenses. And then this is this natural language creation experience. I'm not even dragging and dropping anything here. I'm literally just typing in using the Copilot to create the agent. Watch what happens on the right-hand side here. That sounds good, yes. And it will give the agent a name. It's going to call it Travel and Expense Assistant. And then you'll see it starting to suggest different prompts that I can work with. Now I can keep going through that and refine it and give it further instructions, and that will build out those instructions about how this agent can behave. Or I can switch into this configure experience here where you can see that it's put in a description, it's already put in instructions, AI generated instructions just based on my one-line explanation there. The other thing I can do here is to connect this to knowledge. So I can browse here and have this connected either to an entire library, so I've got my HR library here, or in fact, I'm actually going to just provide it with that one document. So now we've got something that's going to be very specific here. You can choose to say you want to enable web content or not as well, and you can add other documents and other sites in there. And that's pretty much it, right? So if you're a business user, the idea of being able to come in and create these agents for these very specific use cases is exactly what's going on here. I'm going to pause there. We're going to come back to this part in the next section when we get to Copilot Studio. Remember I said we can go through the levels here. So the business user would likely stop here, but we can bring in our low-code maker to help with the next step. But we're just going to leave that scenario there. The other thing I can do as a business user is create agents directly in SharePoint. So if I want the agent experience to live alongside me as I'm in SharePoint, rather than chatting from that Copilot chat experience, you can do that too. On the top bar here of any SharePoint site, you can just open this and there's a ready-made Copilot agent here where you can just start to ask questions. And you can also create those agents based on a set of documents. You could choose everything in here, or you could just choose a certain set of documents and say, create an agent. And you'll see this is very similar to what I was just doing as a business user. The difference here is that we're starting from that knowledge source and then going ahead and saying open the agent rather than starting from the chat experience with the instructions and then linking it in. The end result is largely the same, and spoiler alert, we're going to be able to extend that also using Copilot Studio. So let's take a look at that next level of the experience out of the natural language end users and up into our low code makers. And there's two things I want to talk to you about here. One is how we extend what we just did, and the other one is how we can come back to that main Microsoft 365 Copilot and extend that to take action against other systems. So let's just quit out of this and take a look back at the demo here. We'll go backwards from where we were. So within the SharePoint experience here, if I wanted to edit and extend this, you've actually got the option here to click in and edit. You'll see we didn't see this full user experience just before, but you'll see it looks very much the same as when we did the agent creation. So we've got the name of it, we've got the different sources that have been added and the instructions about how it should behave. We have got this button here, add advanced customization in Copilot Studio. That lifts the agent up to that next level. sadly not quite available yet. And over here back into my travel expense assistant, you will see, as we had earlier, that we have got this go to full Copilot Studio to create agents with actions. Again, coming soon. Stay subscribed, add a comment. I will do a tutorial on this the second I can get my hands on it, but that's the story, that we can take these agents, start to extend them in Copilot Studio. They will then become Copilot Studio agents, but it means that if you've started with something that you've done in this experience here, you're not stuck with that. So the final thing that I want to show you in this section is that you can actually extend this main Microsoft 365 Copilot experience with Copilot Studio as well. So this is the other way around. We're not clicking from here and saying extend through. But if I come into my Copilot Studio experience, and we are going to spend a bit more time here in a moment, you'll see that in the agents that I've got here, Copilot from Microsoft 365, Microsoft 365 Copilot is now the name, is sitting in there as one of the agents. And now I've got the option to add additional agents into it, add additional actions into it, so I can boost its knowledge and connection with other systems. So that's the extensibility story in there. Now, before we go any further with Copilot Studio, and I promise you we are coming back to this, there's one last part here with extending Microsoft 365 Copilot, and this is the world of doing this in a code-first way. So people who do this, rather than the two things that I've just shown you, talk about these as declarative agents. We're now into code-first programming language. And of course, once you're using code, you always have more control and granular control over things than with the drag and drop interface. These are some examples of what that looks like. This is something called the Teams Toolkit where you can go in, but even if you don't write code, stay with me, I'm not a coder either, you'll see some of the same elements here. You can see that we've got instructions in here, and the instructions are very similar to what we've seen before, which are instructing how you want that agent to behave. You can give it capabilities of sites. This is a website that you want it to draw knowledge from. And you can add in actions about what it should do to take action to reach out to other systems. So you're coming around to the same thing. You do have more control and sophistication using the Teams Toolkit because you've got code there, but essentially that is still part of that same story. All right, so far everything I've talked about is extending Microsoft 365 Copilot. You're stuck in that interface. Well, not stuck, you're getting the benefit of that interface. You are using the large language model that's given to you, which is awesome, but you can't change it. You are working with an internal authenticated use case. But what if you want something more than that? What if you want to kind of go your own way and do all of those things? Now you are in the world of building a custom agent, and you're free to do as you like. So I'm going to take you through the tools that are available for you to use here. So this is for both internal and external scenarios. Why would you do this? Frankly, because you want to publish on a channel outside of those things that we just talked about inside Microsoft 365 Copilot Chat or Teams, and you want greater control over the knowledge, the apps, the workflow, the automation, the model, the orchestration, any of those things that you don't have that level of control over. Back to our anatomy of what's going on here, you've got control over all of the things if you want, depending on the tool set you use. So we're going to go up the stack again from low code through to code first, and you'll see the deeper we go, the further up into the stack we go, the more control you have. But again, no cliffs here. If you start low code, you can move up. If you start code first, you can bring it back down. So first part of the story here, Copilot Studio, we are in this low code experience now. A little bit of natural language, a little bit of drag and drop. You need to understand connectors, but you're not writing any code. This is for those Power Platform style citizen developers. I don't like that term, makers, I think is what we say now. So let me take you through what this looks like to build an agent and also have a little bit of a chat about autonomous agents. So this is my Copilot Studio home. As a starting point here, there are a bunch of templates that you can get started with. So this gives you a bit of an idea of the kinds of things that you can create here. Creating something to help with IT help desk questions is a very common one. Quick Q&A based on your website content. There's all sorts of things in here, and you can see a bunch of things coming soon. Microsoft is adding to this all the time. Let's come in here and take a look at the IT help desk, an example. You can type all of these things in yourself, but you don't need to sit and watch me type, and I have got a full tutorial here on how to build all of this if you'd like to go deeper. It has a name, it has a description, it has those instructions about how it should behave. You can set up the connection to your system of choice. In this case, you can see we're connecting to a non-Microsoft system. ServiceNow is where a lot of organizations have got that kind of data. You can add knowledge in here, and you can also go ahead and start to create actions for it to work. So we'll take a look at another one here that I have built in the past. We'll go back to the agents, and I've got my Healthy Living Assistant. This one is connected to a website here. This is a website around health and well-being in the part of the world where I live, in Melbourne, in Australia. And what we can do here is build an agent which is connected to that. So this time I've actually got this connected to that website. I've uploaded a document, so you can see I've got a bunch of different things that are connected up in there. This is the one I built out in that tutorial I mentioned earlier, as well as some actions that it can go and do something. It can go and get the weather. It can go and look up a forecast and return that information. So this is much more sophisticated now than what we were able to do within that Microsoft 365 Copilot. This is something where you are building out knowledge, instructions, actions, and you're able to pull all of that together. You've also got control over manual topics in here. So you can come in and say, for instance, if somebody says that there's an emergency, then we just want to tell them to dial 000, that's the number in my part of the world, rather than finding that answer somewhere else. So you can start to influence the orchestration of how this conversation is going. This is more than you can do with what we saw earlier. You've also got within here the ability to publish to a whole lot of different channels. So there are about 15 different channels in here. You can see you can publish to both internal and external channels. But if you want to go further than that, then we're going to need to start going into customization. The other thing we can do with Copilot Studio is to have what's called an autonomous agent. So let me go back into my agents here, and I have got one here called Returns Agent. Again, another tutorial on how to build this one if you're interested. This is one that acts without human intervention. So instead of saying it's a chat experience, this is actually something where a customer will email in with a request to return an item, and then we want to assess that against the knowledge, which is returns policy, and send out an email. So Copilot Studio, this is all point and click. You can build out agents that act autonomously on their own or act as a chat interface across 15 different channels. You have some control over how the conversation runs, and you can connect it to lots of different knowledge sources and have it take lots of different actions. So this is quite a step up. But what if you want more than that? What if you want control over the model? You want something that's an industry-specific model, or you want control over a large data set that you've already got sitting somewhere else. And this is where this next level of extensibility comes in. And there are two things you can do here working with the Azure AI Foundry. That used to be called Azure AI Studio, rebadged. So Copilot Studio is the best place to start if you want to build out agents for business processes. You don't have to set up or manage any infrastructure. You're just in there, very rapid time to value. But then if you want to extend, you can bring in these other pieces from Azure AI if you've got your own search index in there. So someone, a data scientist in your team, has actually built out, connected to immense knowledge sources in your organization and put sophisticated indexing over all of those things. You can just take that and bring it in. Or somebody has deployed a language model that's not the standard language model you're getting in Copilot Studio. You want something from a different supplier, or something that's a small language model, or some other capability in there, you can bring that into. So these are often different personas doing these things, but these worlds do come together. These are little sort of short video clips from Microsoft, just sort of showing what's going on here. So the idea here is that when you add knowledge into your Copilot Studio agent, one of the options is to add in this Azure AI search. So if you've got that data scientist in your organization who's done that kind of building out the searching and indexing across a large data set, and it's sitting in Azure, you can actually bring that in. So that's giving you much greater control. When you're building a Copilot Studio agent, you're not controlling how the searching and indexing is working. You're just connecting to the knowledge, and you're getting the standard capabilities of the Copilot Studio platform. This allows someone else to have dived much deeper into indexing with all the parameters and tweaks that they need, much more sophisticated and control, and then you can bring that in here and use it in your agent. The next thing you can do is to bring in a specific data model. So like I said, this one is using the OpenAI 4.0 model, but you could say, I actually want to bring in this O1 for finance model that our organization has built, and then bring that in as part of my agent here in a topic, and it will give me those answers based on that. So you've actually got this full extendability. You don't get stuck, even if you start with Copilot Studio and you want to start to bring in those custom data models or custom index data sets, you can do that. However, if you want complete control of everything, your data model, your user experience, all the channels, all the things, then you need to go right to the top of the stack here. And we are working here in the code first tools for developers and data scientists to be able to do things that are much more sophisticated and much more customized. However, there's more to it. Obviously, there's more to it. This is how it goes. So these two things, it's not an and it's and not or. These two things coexist. You don't always have to just use one of them. It is well worth understanding. These are the two major tools for building agents in the platform. It's worth understanding the strengths and how they work together. So we've just seen Copilot Studio, rapid authoring time to value. You want to build out something for your business process, you can just get that happening really quickly. You don't have to set up any infrastructure. You don't have to set up any models. You don't have to think about the cost of the consumption of the underlying data model and the indexing. It's an all-in-one pricing. There are different prices there based on the types of messages. I'm not going to get into that, but it's an all-in-one kind of pricing structure. So rapid time to value, and you're not maintaining anything. There's a whole just platform there that is ready for you to work with. If you go into the Azure AI Foundry, you are now starting to get the code first tools. You can work with GitHub, Visual Studio, semantic kernel to do your own orchestration, all sorts of tools in there that if you are sophisticated with those tools and you want that control, that's where you need to go. It's a custom code first approach. You have complete control of the stack, but that means you are setting up your own infrastructure and all of those things, and you have to be able to do that and maintain that. So there's more work in doing those things and maintaining them, and more things that you are responsible for, because if you want complete control, that's what comes with that. And then each component is priced. So if you've got some kind of indexing, you're paying for the indexing in an Azure AI resource or service, and then you're paying for the language model. So you need to be able to model out those costs in a much more sophisticated way. This is down to the business case, to be honest. Can you justify that or not? If you've got something straightforward that you can achieve with Copilot Studio, chances are that's going to be the right way to go. But if it can't be achieved there, and you need to go deeper in and make that larger investment of time and expertise and money, then those tools are there as well. So that's usually the thing. This is something new forthcoming, the Microsoft 365 Agents SDK. This also means that you've got the option to bring code elements back and forth across Copilot Studio. So again, there are stories here of how these two pieces of the agent building stack work together. Whichever one you choose, the message here I'm going to leave you with around these two, whichever one you choose, you're not wrong and you're not stuck. It's going to come down to that level of resourcing, expertise, capability, investment, all those things. But you will be able to say, let's bring in models from Azure AI, data indices, like search indexes from Azure AI, bring the code in, and then back the other way as well. So you're good to go. So how are you going to choose from here? And please let me know if you've got any more questions in the chat. Consider what kind of agent that you want to build. Is it extending Microsoft 365 Copilot, internal authenticated? Or are you building a custom agent? How do you want to build? Low code, high code? What's right for your scenario and skill set? And how much control do you want over the thing? Whew, that's a lot, isn't it? I hope that's helped you. Like I said, pop some questions in here. There's so much content to come from me. Stay subscribed for more. And as always, thank you for watching.